The morality of inflicting pain, this time on Bill Whittle Now. I'm Scott Ott, and Bill, there is a recent study in the Journal of Medical Ethics, part of the British Medical Journal family of publications, brought to my attention by Amy Hall over at Stand to Reason, that's str.org. A new study has shown that despite the previous presumption that a fetus in the womb could not feel pain before about 24 weeks of development, that may be wrong, and that in fact the fetus can feel something that we would consider akin to pain as early as 13 weeks. Now, that 24-week mark has been the motivator for some countries to ban abortions in the third trimester. Of course, that hasn't held back Democrats in the United States of America. But in any case, the interesting thing about this study, Bill, is, and let me give you the name of this study because that's important if people want to look it up. You'll see the abstract for it under Reconsidering Fetal Pain. The abstract says the mere experience of pain without the capacity for self-reflection is morally significant, and goes on to say that fetal pain might be considered as part of a humane approach to abortion. The interesting thing about the study is the lead writer for the study has been one of the people who has been saying for years that fetal pain doesn't exist before the 24th week and has served as a consultant for Planned Parenthood. Bill, while this doesn't affect the pro-life movement's fundamental assumption that the fetus in the womb is a human being, it does change some things, doesn't it?
I don't know that it does. And I'm not speaking about that from the point of view of a pro-life person. I'm saying the entire argument on the left is that this is a collection of cells until it's born, or perhaps a few hours afterwards, depending on your, particular flavor. And so the issue is, so if you're saying that a fetus feels pain at an earlier point, and therefore people of morality should readjust their calculations, I think the people who've given this any thought have already adjusted their calculations. One of the things that's most appalling to me about the so-called pro-choice movement is, you know what, I'm going to get rid of pro-life and pro-choice. These are advertising terms. Pro-abortion, anti-abortion. The pro-abortion people have made it part of the package that that any moral concern is irrelevant. It's a collection of cells. It's like clipping your fingernails to hear some of these people talk. So if you think that somehow scientific evidence that a fetus feels pain earlier in its development than it was assumed otherwise, if you think that that's going to change the moral calculation of people who've never been concerned about it as a human life in any regard anyway, I don't see how it's going to make much difference, sad to say.
Bill, I think there probably is, as in most other things in life, a spectrum of beliefs with regard to abortion.
Yes, correct.
And
yes.
Some people are where you would say that they are, where it's just a mass of cells until it says mama. But I think that there are a lot of people who would consider themselves to be pro-women's health care, who would consider their concern is for the life, the health of the mother, her ability to navigate life in the future, and who shares some concern about if they can reason in their own minds, hey, the fetus isn't feeling pain anyway, then they can justify that. But if they find out that at 13 weeks, possibly, this fetus is experiencing pain in the abortion procedure, at the very least, they might want to argue for an anesthetic for the fetus.
Well, there's two things to say about that. First of all, an anesthetic for the fetus is, don't you find that?
Before the fetus is violently killed, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I think that bothers me so much is because if you are going to be talking about an anesthetic for the fetus, then you have already granted the case, right? We don't provide anesthetics to fish before we pull them out of the ocean and leave them on the deck. We don't anesthetize chickens. Anesthesia is something that we provide in order to relieve human pain. So that just made my skin crawl. Really, really made my skin crawl. Now,
I will tell you that I interviewed a turkey farmer once, and they actually do have a way of anesthetizing the turkeys before they kill them. But
I have to tell you that actually I find that somewhat comforting. But look, you make a point that I had not seen, and I'm glad you pointed it out to me, because it is a blind spot and it was an error on my part. What you've pointed out to me is that many of the people who have to undergo this decision have a far, far, far greater sense of morality than the cheerleaders for the position. You know what I mean? If you listen to the spokespeople for the pro-abortion movement, the entire idea of conceding pain of any kind is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It's just a thing. It's a procedure. And when I was responding to the issue at the beginning, you're right. I was taking the position of the people who are advocates of it. Like the only person ever that I'm aware of in any state or federal government ever to openly not only suggest but approve of murdering babies that have already been born through abortion and survived. And that official was Barack Obama. It's the only one I've ever heard on record actually come out and say that. So when you're dealing with an opposition who has made their entire position, and I really mean this is like their foundational position, that if you have even if you have moral qualms, forget about whether or not you have an abortion or not. If you have moral qualms about it, if you have any moral distress about it at all, then you're not really a woman, according to the Democrats. This is something you're supposed to be proud of. And when you accept your Golden Globe Awards, it's something you're supposed to brag about. And that is the attitude that has been in place since Roe versus Wade in 1972. It's gotten progressively more and more and more strident in terms of this is not just something unpleasant that we need the ability to make a decision on our own. This is a statement of our political identity. And if you are a pro-life person, you are not a Democrat. That's pretty clear. In fact, things have become so bizarre now that if you're one of those cheerleaders for abortion and you happen to run Planned Parenthood, for example, and you have the temerity to say that men cannot have abortions, you'll be thrown out of your job and fired because of your hateful transphobia. So what do you say about things like this in a world gone insane? You certainly are correct, and this is not only a point I've overlooked, but it's a point that is actually very hopeful. Namely, that the people who have to face this choice are not the same people with the same rhetoric and the same moral position as the people who are cheerleaders for this so-called procedure.
And frankly, Bill, there are a lot of people out there who will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid inflicting pain on any creature. Literally people who catch houseflies and release them outdoors, who spend thousands of dollars on health care for their pets, who see an injured animal on the side of the road and stop to assist it. All of those people, there are a lot of those kind of people who still sort of on principle, and because their party has said so for years, would be backers of a woman's right to choose. But if it got right down to it and they said, hey, there is really serious scientific question brought forth by a pro-choice scientist who says it's pretty early on when these fetuses in the womb can feel pain. It seems to me that if the so-called pro-life movement or the anti-abortion movement is going to reach out, that would be a place for an inroad, no?
Yes. And what you've just described connects to another aspect of this entire spectrum of morality, and that is the anti-human aspect of it. The fact that the kind of things that you would expect that people, the kind of decency and morality and concern and for pain and so on that they would show for any animal really that's suffering applies to all animals except for human beings. This is a complete inversion of the morality of our entire species up until the present point. I am strongly in favor of a raised awareness of animals are more complicated than we used to think they are. There's no question about that. And raising an awareness of animal protection and so on, I am a huge advocate of. But as always with our progressive opponents, you cannot make the case that they want to make unless they go to the complete opposite extreme and then block out any possible rejoinder to it. So in other words, if you're going to have this, if you're going to have people comfortable with abortion, you have to have them comfortable with the idea that human beings are a cancer on the planet. You have to have them comfortable with the idea that we're responsible for all of the evil on the planet. You have to have them comfortable with the idea that we're killing the planet. And you have to set up within society a death wish that is put there by people who have spent their entire lives trying to convince you that humanity is the greatest scourge on the planet in human history. And I just don't believe that. I don't. And I will remember for as long as I live the moment when this realization came to me. And it came to me, believe it or not, in college. This was 1979. It was still you could still get an education in 1979. We were in a classroom, it was an anthropology class for sophomores, I think. And it's one of these gigantic classrooms with 200 people in it. And somebody was talking about how horrible people are and humans and killer apes and, murder and war and all the rest of this stuff. And the professor said, look around you. Just look around. Just look around you to the left and right. Look around. So everybody did. He said, there is no other animal on the planet, none, that you could pack 200 of them into a size this small and not have them all kill each other. There's no other animal on the planet. And I thought, that's true. That's true. So I don't want to get too far off of the subject of the thing, but all of it is predicated on not only a disregard for human life, but contempt for human life. And now you find why they feel the way they do about euthanasia, voluntary or not. You find out why they feel the way they do about socialized medicine. Resources are scarce, and if you get to be a certain age, then it's time for you to die. We'll give you some pain pills. You can go home and die in relative comfort. But the idea that you should try to live as long as you can because you're a unique individual, that's archaic to them. So all of it is tied together, and it's tied together into this view that humans are not only not special, that they are in fact poisonous. And from that flows all of their politics, flows the politics of socialized healthcare, flows the politics of socialism in general, the idea that the workers are cogs. And if you have to kill, 4,000 people of radiation poisoning downstream from the Chernobyl nuclear power plant because building a reactor that is more stable costs more money and building a containment around that reactor is far more money. If we can save some bucks by building an unsafe reactor and not putting it inside a containment structure, and the worst that would happen is we'll kill some of the people, which, they're hard to feed anyway. This is the difference between individuals-based society and a state-based society. And you cannot separate abortion from euthanasia. You can't separate euthanasia, abortion from climate change. All of it is part of the same drumbeat that is designed to make us hate ourselves. And the only thing that progressives hate more than themselves are people who don't hate themselves. That's where their real passion lies. People who have the audacity to think that human beings are fundamentally good and are capable of not only acts of incredible mercy and compassion and love and sacrifice, also acts of astonishing intellectual leaps and inferences and ingenuity and adaptation, all of this stuff. You can tell a person's politics without asking them a single political question by simply asking them about what they think about people. And my experience has been that the people on the left are pro-abortion, pro-euthanasia, pro-socialized healthcare, and all the other things because they don't feel that people are good. They feel that people are bad. And that the people on our side of the aisle not only feel compassion and a desire to have a healthcare system that preserves you for as long as you want to be on earth and are able to stay, the idea that people need defending even if they can't defend themselves, that every life is precious, that a newborn baby is in the most important way more amazing and of more value than an entire galaxy of dead rocks. And so this is where the distinction lies. And this, of all the things I think that are out there, Scott, is the thing that has to be fought, because ultimately when you get right down to it, looking at Europe and where Europe is relative to us in terms of being further down this progressive path, it really comes down to, do you want to live or do you want to die? As an individual and as a species, do you think we deserve to die? The left does, and the evidence for this is so overwhelming and so numerous. It's pointless to even try to point out some examples. They think that we deserve to die, and I think that we deserve to live, and I suppose that distinction is not one that many people recognize, but when you get right down to it, that's fundamentally the difference between them and us, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you love life and you love people, you're going to love hanging out with us for 3 nights on the ocean, out in the Caribbean, headed for the Bahamas out of the port of Miami. It is Bill Whittle's 2020 cruise, and we'd like you to be part of it. You're going to meet some great people, obviously have some great food, enjoy a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, some serious opportunity to refuel and rejuvenate and gear up for the big 2020 election, but in a casual atmosphere where when you leave there, you're going to walk away with great memories and great friends. We hope you have already signed up for it, but if you're among the people who have not yet done so, go to BillWhittle.com and click on the picture of the big boat. If you're not a member, you can join there as well. And we want to thank our friends at the Patriot Post for entering into a co-promotional partnership with us to make sure more people know about the Patriot Post and more people know about BillWhittle.com. You'll find a link to the Patriot Post and as well as the cruise and membership in the description below. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.